Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a great show. Today we're going to be talking with Rabbi Yossi Harlig, who is the chaplain of the Miami-Dade County Police and Fire Departments. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today is the third anniversary of the collapse of the Surfside Tower condos. And you were there today for the anniversary of that. Can you tell us about your experience today, and then let's look back the last couple of years?
Today they had at 10 a.m. I mean, they actually had two services. Last night was just for the families at 1:22 a.m. The families got together and did a candlelight vigil, and they had a special. They've done it the last 3 years, the time when the building came down. And then in the morning, which was just now, I just came from there at 10 a.m., they had a memorial service where the mayor of Surfside spoke, the lieutenant governor was there, she spoke, the mayor of the Kava spoke, some of the family members, and I was honored to lead the prayers there. And, seeing the families coming back together brings a lot of the memories of what we went through 3 years ago. And but it's important for the families to see that they're not forgotten.
So 3 years ago, you receive a call in the middle of the night, you figured out there's some real problem, you go over there. When you went there and you saw what had occurred, what was that like for you and for the family members that were there? Yeah,
so my phone goes off at 5 a.m. and I see the chaplain, the head of the chaplain's program is calling. I knew it's not a good sign, but I didn't think it was anything major life-changing. And she says a building partially collapsed in Surfside and we need all the chaplains to go out there. Once or twice before they called out all the chaplains when some cops, a few police officers were shot and killed. So when you drive there, you expect to see a vision of a partial building coming down and a few injuries, a few people died maybe. But when you show up there, you can't believe your eyes because unless you see it for yourself, you didn't understand the magnitude of what was happening. So when I pulled up, maybe it was 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, it was starting to get light. The first responders were there. And there were a few family members there standing next to the building. I still remember till today. I saw that guy this morning. One particular father crying. My son wasn't supposed to be in the building. He went to the building, slept overnight because I think he was going to a funeral the next day that was close by. And he was saying, my son is in the building. I want to climb in there and pull him out. So I remember at that time, there was like people just standing there in shock. I remember there was a doctor from Jackson Hospital waiting there because when they pulled out the people from the rubble, they were hoping they were injured. Not they were hoping they were injured. They were hoping they could pull them out alive and they may have to do surgery or do things for them. And I was there for the first hour or two, but then they started sending family members up the street to like 4 or 5 blocks north of there. And I remember just talking to the mayor about it. I remember we walked together in the rain to meet the families. Now at that time, there was a lot of confusion because people didn't know how many people were in the buildings. I started to get texts from people stating, oh, we know this person didn't show up to the synagogue, that person didn't show up to the synagogue. So we knew a few people that were in the building, but there's no like a count of who's in the building. And we came to, I think the Surfside Community Center, and it was complete, panic there. At that time, they were saying maybe 200 people were in the building, 150 in the building. People were lining up and giving names of their loved ones. At that point, they were expecting, like in a few hours, they're going to pull people out and they're going to be united with their loved ones. Remember, this is the first time something like this happened. That usually, when God forbid there's a shooting or a plane crash, within 24, 48 hours, you get the people and you go home. Either you go home or the hospital or you bury them. Here, they were expecting the same thing. In a few hours, they're going to come out and they're going to bring them the loved ones and they'll go to the hospital to be with them. And that didn't happen. And that was a very, very difficult moment. There was a lot of tension in the room. They were upset at the elected official. What do you mean? Why can't you bring them out right now? So, and we were the go-between as chaplains.
What is it for people when they're having trauma like this, when they see a religious person that allows them to be expressive in sorrow or grief? What is it that happens in the psyche, even if they're not religious, but I think there's still that sort of opening? What is it that, again, that's in our psyche that allows us to do that and to find comfort in that?
So even for me as a chaplain, I've never been at such a scene. So I'm thinking like, what do I do now? I mean, so in the beginning, some people asked us to pray for them that they're going to bring out the family members alive and they can go back with their life. That's, the first 24, 48 hours. Pray for them to find my loved one and bring them out of the building. And that's what they wanted. Also, at that time, remember, there was a lot of Jewish people in that building. So they felt comforted having rabbis, because not only rabbi chaplains, but the rabbis on the group of Miami-Dade police chaplains played more of a significant role because it was a big the Jewish community, a lot of the people are in the Jewish community, so they feel comfortable having a rabbi, not only praying, but a rabbi kind of talking with the first responders and doing everything they can to give them what they need.
When people ask you to pray with them or for them, did you do that individually, or when they came up and asked you, or did you wait and put together a group?
At that time, you're talking about the first 24 hours or 48 hours. I mean, things have evolved, which we could talk about. How things went on, a lot of different things changed. But the first 24, 48 hours, it was individually. But not only, I didn't go over to people to pray with them. You have to understand, when you're talking to people in trauma, you can't go there and push whatever you feel is important to tell them. You have to read what they need. That's the most important thing. Some people just want someone to stand next to them and give them a hug. Some people want you not to say anything. Some people may not want you around them. You have to read, what does the person need at that moment? And things change along the way it changed. And that's we were more assessing what we could do to help them. And then remember, we're also dealing with the first responders. As a chaplain, my role really is with the police and fire, but here it came and I wore two hats, dealing with the families and with the police and fire. So we were also there with the police and fire. Remember, they're in the pile, putting their life into danger. There was fires then going on to do everything they can to save people, and they were also going through a very difficult time.
So what was it like for the firemen and the police that were there, as well as yourself, every day when they were there trying to find survivors? And then at some point they knew they weren't going to be, but they still wanted to recover whatever they could. What was it like for the ones the police and firemen that you spoke to?
It was very, very difficult. I remember when they made the decision to switch from search and rescue to search and recovery. So we would go every day, twice a day. They had briefings for the families, and it was very, very difficult. Now, because what made this story so difficult was different than typical, because people expect or know there's such a thing as going into a bar and shooting, terrorism, a plane coming down. But you don't expect to be in an apartment and going to sleep at night, overlooking, Surfside, the beautiful views, and the next second, it's a pile of rubble. So it was, people couldn't really comprehend it, and so that's so difficult. The second thing that made this story different than anything else that happened before, it was day after day after day, and they couldn't pull people out. That was very, very difficult. And in the beginning, when I was in the rooms, there was a lot of tension. We as chaplains stood around. It was a private meeting with Ray Jadala, and we had the Israeli search and rescue team would talk to the families, and they never had good news to them. They never had to tell them in the first few weeks, like, we found someone alive. It was very, very difficult. And I remember there was a lot of tension. And then one day, the police made a decision, something that they never do, which is, let's bring the families to the site. Usually, don't bring the families to the site. And I remember I was on the bus with the families. They asked the chaplains to be there. And the families had a lot of anger and very upset at the first responders. At that time, it was us against them. And then they came to the site. I still remember like today. Also, chaplains were standing behind. The first responders were there. And when they saw the pile and they saw the building, so first family members started screaming out the names of their loved ones. Remember, because the last time they spoke to them, they went to sleep. It was very heartbreaking. I still get goosebumps thinking of that moment. And then there was certain calmness. And then they realized and understood this is a very difficult scene. It's so difficult that, unfortunately, the way the building came down, that it's like one thing over the other, like a pancake. It's almost impossible to get people out. So when they left that scene, I won't say for everyone, I would say for most people, it's not us against them. How come they can't get, this is America, they can't get in 5 minutes out? We're all in it together. And that helped a lot, the first responders. They didn't feel the families are angry at them. And the families felt better knowing that the police and fire and the Israeli team that came in, which usually they don't allow an outside country allowing the people, they knew the comfort it's going to give to the families. That was a turning point. And then when they asked me to lead the service, then I remember for the first responders, when they switched from search and rescue to search and recovery, it was a very difficult service, because as first responders, police and fire, the greatest wish is to bring out someone alive. But then something interesting also happened to me. One day I was walking up Collins Avenue, and a guy comes over to us. I was working with a police officer, and he gave us a hug. He said, "Thank you so much for bringing back my loved one to bury them." So then they realized giving them back that comfort that you could bury someone gives them a closure. And I still remember the moment when they switched from search and rescue to search and recovery. And I was upstairs by the notification, because when they notify a family, they want a rabbi to be there or clergy to be there. And I was on the room, and there was a sense of relief. And then I went downstairs to the room where the family members didn't get loved ones, and they got the news that we switched from search and rescue to search and recovery, and it was sad. They said, I never believed I'll leave one room where they just told them they found your family member in the building, and there's more relief than in the next room. That was a very important time. And that was the lady that texted me. I showed you the text.
So we know it's obviously very traumatic for the families and who lost their loved ones. What effect did it have on you and your relationship with people, including your family?
I think the story had a profound effect. A number of things. I was just happened to be in a hotel this past Shabbos for Bar Mitzvah, and I was like on the 8th floor, and Surfside came back to me. Sometimes you have like the PTSD, the building. You saw the building. You stand there saying it in a month. But what it did for me is it taught you that you never. And I mean, you're going to say the cliche that, everyone always says, but it's like you see it happening, that you never take any moment for granted. You expect certain things, but this was the unexpected. But what I also thought, and I shared this today at the service, and I shared this same thing when they asked me to speak at the service, where they switched from search and rescue to search and recovery, I also spoke to the families. And I said, a house could be destroyed, but a home can never be destroyed. And we have to remember, we have to focus not on the house, but on the home. Home is the love that they have for each other. The home is the tradition they put in the home. And the home is the family memories we have. So I think, again, drilled away, it again emphasized the point that we have to remember, where do we focus our energy and time? Is it the house or is it the home? And in one moment, everything can change. It's interesting. 3 years ago, that night, I did something I usually don't do. My wife took me out for my birthday, and after we went to a restaurant in Miami Beach, that's a kosher restaurant, and after that we went and sat on the boardwalk in Miami Beach, which I never usually do. I'm going to sit out there. And this was like 10 o'clock at night. Little did I know when I'm sitting there that 30, 40 streets up the road, in 3.5 hours, the building's going to go down. It's going to change some people's lives and change my life. And it teaches you never know what the next moment is going to be. And the main thing is you have to make every moment meaningful and count in your life. And those are the things that really, and the other thing is you don't need to give people answers. People are not looking, like people ask me all the time, so what did you tell them about God? People want to know that you care, and people want to know that you're there for them. And that's going to help them the most, more than anything else that you could say.
Because we know frequently when family members died, and sometimes people want to offer solace, and they say time will heal and all this stuff. And when I heard that stuff, it's like, I don't even want to hear that. Just not in the picture. Just being there is sufficient.
100%, because it's people. It's interesting. There's a very interesting law in Jewish tradition that when you go to a house of Shiva, you shouldn't start talking. Let them to start talking. Why? Because could be they want to talk about the weather. Could be they want to talk about tonight's Panther game. Could be they want to talk about the father or mother. Could be they want to talk about how they died. Could be they don't want to talk about that at all. You allow them to dictate the conversation. Could be they don't want to talk at all. Allow the conversation to go. And that's as important. It's very hard to stand in a moment of pain and be able to be present in the moment. And being able to, they feel that you're here for them and what you need at that moment. I don't need to be there to defend God and give God, because I don't understand the ways of God. And I don't understand why these things happen. I don't understand why certain people left the building a few hours before, or why certain people shouldn't have been in the building, and they happened to fly into town, and they happened to be there that night for another reason. Only God understands it, and that's what I tell people.
Rabbi Manus Freeman, who's written several books, very popular on YouTube, when we interviewed him, he said, Michael, it's all about them. It's not about you. And to your point, yes, which is, what does that particular person need and want, and what can they express?
Correct.
So tell us how, if you will, how that improved your life and your life with your children, so that it's measurable, palpable, but the things that you learned there. What have you done because of that?
I think, to me, just like yesterday, we had on Sunday, I get together with the family. It allowed me to, when these moments happen, to kind of tune everything out and appreciate those moments and focus on the moments of being with your family. I think that's where really, for me, you think about that, it molded me then, is to be able to be in those special moments and be in the moment. Because you know how many, all the 98 families that lost loved ones would switch in a second, not to have not to be with their loved ones and not to be on the phone and be, focused on what's really important. And I think that allowed it. The other thing is, there's a great prayer we say in the morning is, thank you, God, for giving me back my soul, is literally appreciating the life that you have. And not only appreciating it, but taking advantage of it. Because in that building, they were reading all the names now. And I noticed from 1 year old till 95 years old was on that list, and everything in between. And you never know when that moment is going to be. So it's really to make every day a meaningful day. It's interesting. What do we say? Killing time and losing money. Why do we say killing time? Because time you never get back. You kill it. Money you lose, you can get it back. But unfortunately, most people focus on the money, not on time. So the value time and the value. I just saw this couple now that I met 3 years ago. And he said it bothers him because his parents both died in the building. And they were supposed to go out one morning for breakfast, and he pushed it off to that morning. And by the time that morning came, he couldn't. And he said, he taught him, never push off something. Take advantage of it. Now, you shouldn't live your life in fear. I mean, any moment, anything's going to be taken from you. But it's a strong wake-up call.
So, interesting times that we're living with, and to see how now 3 years later how this is coming back to life. When I talked to people this morning about it, they said, "You mean it wasn't last year?"
Right.
And when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I said, "How long has it been?" Has it been a year or two? 3 years. It is a live event and certainly in my head, and certainly in those families that have lost their loved ones. On the site right now, is it completely? Is there anything on the site now?
No, there's nothing on the site. I saw one little piece of the building still there. It was sold to a family in one of those Middle Eastern countries, and they're putting up a building there. And the big discussion with the families, they want to have a memorial there, so they're going back and forth with the owners to see if they could put something on the property that's going to remember their loved ones. The most painful thing is for people is they don't want their loved ones to be forgotten, and they want to be able to know that the loved ones is remembered. And that's something that's important, because nobody wants to be forgotten. Everybody wants to be remembered. And that's something that's, so important for the families.
That's why in cemeteries, typically the person's name that's there, so you can remember them and think that through. So we have about 5 minutes left. What else should we touch on concerning what's going on in Miami-Dade County?
Yeah, so one of the beautiful things that came out of that thing at Surfside was that I saw a unity that was unbelievable. One day they invited the chaplains to be at the room when President Biden comes. And the president spent like 3 hours there. Over there was also Governor DeSantis. It was our state senator, Marco Rubio, and Rick Scott was there. The spouses were there. The lieutenant governor was there. Mayor Levine Cava, who did a tremendous job for Miami-Dade County. Freddie Ramirez, Ray Jadala, they're all in the room. And when you stand there and you watch it, you realize that everybody was a human. I didn't look at the president and the governor was there. They were all human beings created by God, trying to give comfort to the families and give answers to the families, give support to the families, all as one unit. And it's the same point that happened in Israel October 7th, is that before that there was so much fighting, after that so much unity. And a great rabbi said, unfortunately, we know how to die together, but we also have to learn how to live together. So Surfside was beautiful. There was no politics there. And I was there with the police, fire, with the government. I was in a lot of the meetings. Everyone was single focused. What can we do to save lives? And if we can't save lives, what can we do to bring the families back? And that unity was heartwarming. That unity was inspiring. But it's easier to die together. It's hard to live together. And that's the unity that I think is important to know. Unity doesn't mean that we both have to agree. Unity doesn't mean that we both feel this is the right direction to go. Unity means that I know in my heart and heart that you want what's the best for the country. You want what's the best for your church, for your synagogue. You know what's the best for your kids or for your family. And we just have different points of view of how to get there. We have the same thing with our own children. Sometimes children could go on therapy because they complain what we did for them, we didn't do for them, blah, 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 right? We always want our kids to understand that it's possible we made the wrong decisions for you, but remember, those decisions came from a place of love and caring. It turned out wrong. I should have not pulled you out of the school. I should have not put you out of school. And I think this is something so important, especially that we're coming now to the season. I'm not sure if I can say those words because I don't want us to get, certain words you can't use that, they'll take us off the websites. But you know what I mean? We're getting to the season where there's such strife and fighting. The key is to have that unity for one another and love for each other.
So we understand there's going to be a tomorrow, all right?
Yes.
We hope to be in it, all right? And to understand there's so many things that we could get upset about, but we needn't be.
Right.
And as saying goes, that don't sweat the small stuff, and most of it is. And so as our children get older, you have children that the whole gamut.
Whole gamut, yes.
And you have one that's a lawyer.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you.
And then you have some that are
very young,
much younger.
Sure.
And so when
and in between.
And so when we look to our children and say, my goodness, where did the time go? And so I did want to congratulate you on the pending opening of the
God
Friendship
willing,
Circle.
we're going to open up the news campus, which a Chabad and Friendship Circle is there, hopefully in the next 3-4 months, sometime in 2024. A builder says one time, those last minute things, but it's moving along. It's beautiful. I'd love for you to come. Maybe we could do a show from there.
Right. Well, what an idea.
Yeah.
So in case people don't know where, 87th Avenue,
right, 87th Avenue, 112th Street. We're building people always pass what's going on. We call it Friendship Campus. We're still looking for someone, a $5 million donor that we can name their name. So it's still open. Maybe the Miller Center. Yeah. I saw your name on the university. Is that you?
A very distant relative.
Yeah, so we're opening up a beautiful Chabad and Friendship Circle, which Chabad is one for the Jewish community. The Friendship Circle is one for the special needs community, which is non-sectarian. Beautiful rooms, music room, art rooms, a dance room. It's going to be beautiful. So
one of the things I learned from you is to be open for all possibilities for all people.
Correct.
And I wanted to share that 2 years ago, somebody came to me and said, "Listen, would you?" My son has autism. Do you have an internship? And immediately I felt like I was up against the wall. And so I said to him, listen, I know you're saving a lot of lives. So the answer is yes, 3 days, 4 hours a day. That's it. I was sort of resentful because I said, he's not going to start screaming, is he? No. I said, okay. And I looked at it and I said, here's a dad trying to help his son. As soon as that crept into my consciousness, it was like, of course, I've got to do this. So there I was, so afraid that it was going to be a terrible experience, all right? It turned out just the opposite. By the end of the day, we offered him a job, and now it's been a couple of years.
Wow.
The mom and dad called, so thankful that we offered him a job, which he took. And I look at it like that was sort of like what I was supposed to do, because it opened up this whole thing about human beings. A month later, I called the dad, and I go, how are you? He goes, good. I said, I want to thank you for introducing me to your son.
Wow.
And he says to me, Michael, I thought it was going to be the opposite. I said, that you were going to let him go. I go, no. And so it allows me to look at people and to be able to look past the immediate thing that I see. Including recently, we did an interview, and Rachel was doing the show, probably remembers this. This guy came in, 85% of his body was tattooed. He had earrings, nose rings, all this stuff. And I said to him, listen, I forget his name. I go, there are people like me and there are people like you. I'm going to look past what I'm looking at. Tell me about you. By the time I got done, I was able to see past that. And as far as a family man and a businessman, he had rented, when people would laugh at him, he had rented 60,000 feet at the youth fair site, had 450 booths from around the world. People would pay him to put on this event. And so, again, that experience and learning a little bit more about autism and about us as human beings and about myself allowed me to be better.
Love it.
Yep.
Most people would like to stay in their comfort zone, and they're not comfortable going out of their comfort zone and learning something new. Basically, what you said today, you thank the parents. We have that with our volunteers at Friendship Circle. Most of them will say, don't thank us. We want to thank them because the impact it had in our lives is even more than we're having on them, which is true. So, really glad to hear that you did that. And it's okay to feel frustrated in the beginning. Why did I say yes? But you pushed yourself and you said yes, and the experience was great.
And certainly in interviewing people like yourselves, it allow us to be a little bit more open and understand where we're at and say, okay, bubbles up. Okay, so you thought that. So what else are you going to do about it? And so, again, what we're going to do is we're going to continue helping people as much as we can. I do want to do a shout out to Dr. Tina Carroll Scott, who received a 2-year grant from the Miami Foundation, who has dedicated her life to improve racial inequalities for healthcare, and she's with South Miami Children's Center. And I want to thank the funders, the people that did that. We're trying to help these little kids.
Amazing.
And what you realize when you help the child, it's just not the child. It's their universe as well, their whole families and their friends. So again, for every child that's there, they have a whole family that's there that's also being improved. Rabbi Yossi Harlig, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. And may the 98 lives should continue shining in the families' lives and the community and the world.
Thank you very much for being here. Folks, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy yourself, and remember, take care of your family. Have a good day.